So I welcome you all again, those who are in the classroom and those who are watching us online. So yesterday we completed administrative behavior, right? And though the unit of organization has not been separately mentioned in the breakup, but nonetheless I would touch upon it because there are certain pointers that I want you to carry home. Now, when you look at the organizations as a unit, right, let me just make you glance through the PYQs so that you have a fair amount of idea that whatever is being asked. Now, you'll be surprised to know that a lot of us think that from the unit of organization, a lot of theories are going to be asked. But it is a highly application oriented unit where just the blanket copying of your notes of theories will not suffice. Also, the nature is very hybrid. When I say hybrid, you will be asked to refer or infer the ideas related to, let us say, regulatory authorities, right, or ministries and departments. Now there is a risk. A risk is that a candidate can get carried away and can make the answer either GS-ish or paper 2-ish. This is a temptation. This is a sort of a getting carried away which you should guard against. We are attempting paper 1, that is administrative theory. Okay, so anything and everything that will be GS-ish or paper 2-ish will only be a appendage, example, case study, illustration. There can be chances that you might be actually driven towards an India specific view by the question itself explicitly. But then also do not compromise, do not ever compromise on the concepts. For example, if the question is on departmentalization, can you name certain theorists who have actually talked about departmentalization? See, until and unless this linking develops, we are in a soup. Departmentalization, specialization. Taylor, Fayol, Gulick, Arvik. Each of the, remember, what is the idea? Deduce it like this. It's a structural idea. Who would be talking more about it? Classicals. Whenever I talk about morale, motivation, incentive to work, then the behavioralist. So this kind of mental mapping you should do. So whenever I am talking about departmentalization, a quote or a line by Fayol or Gulick and Arvik will help cement the point. Okay, so these are the tricks. Like I always say that you will end up attempting 38 questions. And through these things, if you are able to enhance even 1 mark per question, you have enhanced your score by 38. As simple as that. I'll be Taylorian in this approach that this is 38 questions and you will end up enhancing your marks by 38. So this is something which is you should keep in mind while attempting paper 1. Yes, use as many references for paper 2, second ARC, this and that. That's fine. For example, there will be questions regarding, let us say, PPP. Okay, use Kelkar committee. Who's stopping you? But the point is that the secular concept of PPP, which has come in as a part of NPM, but PPP gained currency at the time of NPM only. Though if you say governments have had contractors since time immemorial, the whole New Delhi was built by builders and contractors. It was not Lutyens or Herbert Baker were building on their own. They were contractors. But the philosophy behind PPP is something which is of recent, maturity, so as to say. So here, by all means, use Kelkar committee. But the point here is that the secular concept of PPP under the larger vision of NPM, that is your concept. Always make the concept the fulcrum of your argument. Okay, so this is something that I want you all to remember. And this is a caution also, because we tend to get carried away while writing, answers for this particular unit. Marks distribution is something that I told you, but since 2016, let me reiterate that almost 20 to 30 marks have been asked. Now, the thrust has been distributed. Okay, there have been questions based on systems theory, contingency theory, regulatory authorities, okay, structures and forms, ministries, department, corporations and companies. Now sample this and I'll read the questions from 2016 onwards. This is ministries, department and corporation and companies. The autonomy of public corporations raised a great debate about their internal working and external relation with ministries and departments. Where will you link it? PSU's unit in paper 2. So there we talk about what? Autonomy, control, all those aspects, and we say that a balance of autonomy, accountability and control should be there. Too much autonomy will erode the public purpose of these public corporations, and too much control will stifle their creative and entrepreneurial spirit. Remember, we are not looking at these PSUs as they were established in 1950s. We are looking at them in the environment of the present day public administration paradigm, NPM, governance, good governance, where the stress is on public service delivery, quality, no matter you charge a small user fee, that's fine. Okay, so this psyche should be built into it. So here in internal working, external relation with ministries, departments, that is something that will relate to all those conceptual aspects of autonomy, accountability and control. Yahi hai na? Because departmental undertakings are more closely wedded to the ministries and department, whereas independent entities are somewhat loosely wedded. But nonetheless, they are accountable to the parliament, they are subject to the domestic laws. Okay, and then there are debates regarding, let us say, disinvestment, corporatization, because the communist and the other school of thought will say that it is akin to selling a family jewel. Right? Air India privatization has happened recently, I mean fairly recently. Okay, and BSNL and MTNL are, crying like anything for some sort of a budgetary support from the government. So that is, these things should be kept in mind, but these things will be used as examples to reinforce your arguments. Which book are you carrying, madam? Model and State. Achha. Okay. All right. Next is the regulatory regimes which are there. So what I'll do is I'll put down the thrust areas. Okay. Ministries, departments, corporation and companies. Next is the regulatory bodies. Now the system of regulation as it came about has a conceptual basis to it. Okay. Now see, the nature of the question is so comprehensive. And this is 2016. So in 2016, this portion accounted for 30 marks out of 400. Okay. If the regulatory commissions are wholly independent, they are completely irresponsible for doing the very important policy determining and administrative work. On the other hand, to rob the commissions of their independence is seriously to menace the impartial performance of their judicial work. This is a statement by Cushman, who's a scholar. Okay, exam. Now, please understand, 2019 amendment to RTI Act, right? The status of CICs and ICs were brought in the government. So you can use that example to handle questions like these. But the nature of your argument should be purely conceptual. The reinforcing of that argument can go through contemporary lens. Again, if you see the theme which is running, or the current which is running, is about autonomy, accountability, control. Everything is related to that. Whether the goal will remain aligned to the public goal or it will deviate. That's it. Okay, next. Systems theory and contingency theory. Something that we have discussed already. Look at the question. Systems theory, in essence, is not a theory, but an approach to study administrative phenomena. This is easy, fairly easy. You can take, even in the rudimentary sense, the evolution of public administration and see how it evolved. You can use Henry, or better, you can use Wilhelm and demonstrate it through systems theory. Remember, if you will make the evolution the fulcrum, then that's a problem. Systems theory will remain the main current. You are using the evolution only as a tool to demonstrate that. Okay. Then, this is something which is related to PPP and somewhat abstract. Again, 2018, 15 marker, discuss the essential characteristics of public sector centered and market centered perspective in PPP. Public-private partnership. Again, a conceptual question on PPP. So a lot of you will end up writing PPP is this, Khelkar committee said this, examples this. That may be true, but that is not my answer. I'm not going to award you anything out of that 15. Probably 0, or if I show my mercy, half a mark or 1 mark. Because that is not what it is asking. It is asking the public sector centered and market centered perspectives. So the argument should be that we arrive at a win-win situation. This is at the crux of it. Okay, ये बात समझ में आ रही है? Are you guys getting this? That why we are differentiating these things and how we can get more marks. Okay, again 2018. Political and administrative systems have a reciprocal relationship. Discuss. 15 marks. Right? And I would like to tell you, whatever solutions, PYQ solutions that you are purchasing, viewing either online or through some books, there are multiple books, but none of them are very reliable. Because almost, in my opinion, let me say that, none of them have been written by the authors that they are claiming to be. In my opinion. Okay, I might be wrong. And the categorization is also haphazard. So please be very sure that what you are assuming to be correct, is it actually correct? Okay, so take them with a pinch of salt. Next again, PPP, an effective management information system is key to, this is something which is related to the techniques of administrative improvement. Next, No, it is related to the organizations only. An effective MIS is key to successful HQ field relationship. So they have blended. Some of the people might have categorized into techniques of administrative improvement. I have categorized it into HQ field relationship. So this has been asked. Next, again, ministries and departments. Form of an organization influences the success of public enterprise, but then the choice of the form has always remained problematic. Discuss the statement in the context of comparative merits and limitations of department, corporations, companies, and boards. Give illustrations. So basically, our notes that we should revise is what are these entities, what is the merit, what is the demerit. But you will have to contextualize that part. Form of an organization influences the success of public enterprises, but the choice of a form has always been problematic. You will have to demonstrate that it cannot be a win all or lose all. You will have to draw the line somewhere where a balance will arrive based on the goal that you are setting. Okay, understood? Therein you can take examples. For example, the defense PSUs that were recently corporatized. Ordnance Factory Board ka hua. Okay. Next, again, regulatory authorities. Now see how conceptual this is. The advent of regulatory regimes indicates the demise of the arbitrator state. Who can tell me what is the meaning of this arbitrator state?
Arbitrator.
Like what? You see, ultimately state has the resources and it has the legitimacy to make decisions for the geography and people that it is governing. So state is an arbitrator of public interest wherein it protects, furthers and fosters the public interest. As part of the philosophy like NPM, PCT, etc., the philosophy of the arbitrator state has taken a turn towards utility maximizers, wherein its traditional role in arbitration has taken a back seat and the task of handling these complex scenarios has been devolved or delegated to the regulatory agencies, wherein the state directly does not involve itself in nitty-gritties, complex and contesting issues. It only intervenes when it is absolutely necessary. Under the philosophy of the regulatory regimes, the regulators should emerge as an independent entities servicing the interest of not just the consumer but the sector at large that they are regulating. Okay, ये बात समझ में आई? This is the way you will have to deal with it. Again, Systems and Contingency Theory 2019. Contingency theory of organization is founded on the interplay of external fit and internal fit. So questions are not easy. And see, it is all of them largely are in the optional bracket 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. One isolated question might be there in compulsory 1 or 5. Okay. 2020, again, structures and forms. Department, boards and commissions as a form of organization are dissimilar in the context of accountability and responsibility. Now here it. See, we saw a question where we were talking about merits and demerits. In that merits or demerits, either will be talking about all those things or not. So that is the same content that will come here, but the way you will express that content will differ. So the soul will remain the same, the body will change. Okay, next again PPP. PPP phenomena has been transformed into a type of governance scheme or mechanism Discuss its capacity to overcome future challenges. 2021 regulatory authorities. Regulation is old but increasingly necessary mode of social coordination, political intervention into societal process. Examine it in the context of globalization. So right from unit 1 that we were studying the impact of globalization, etc., etc., all your knowledge will be used. See, friends, this is the nature of public administration. You will be having questions wherein you will have to pick up stuff from multiple units, bind it together. Okay. Again, 2022 regulatory frameworks have become essential building blocks of world society. Discuss their potential and impact in fulfilling the hopes and demand. So if you look at regulatory framework, old but necessary, social coordination, there also it was talking in context of globalization. Here it has changed the phraseology of the question. It is again saying have become building blocks of world society. Okay. So the same thing here also you can use the logic of that arbitrator state. See, at times from the previous year's questions we can use something. Okay. So we can use the arbitrator state phenomena here as well. 2023 PPP. PPPs have been justified in various ways over the time that seeks to privatize public services for the profit of private entities. Do you agree? This is the tone and tonality of the question is critical. Though nowhere it is written critically analyze. So understand it. Okay. ये समझ में आ गया? Understood? ठीक है, आगे चले. Should we continue, ma'am? Okay. So you see the basic definition of an organization. What is an organization? Goff, that is a very own J.M. Goss, says that an organization, or he views an organization as an arrangement of personnel for facilitating the accomplishment of some agreed purpose. As the arrangement of personnel for facilitating the accomplishment of some agreed purpose through the allocation of functions and responsibility. There can be multiple scholars, I'll give few. L.D. White. Organization is the arrangement of personnel for facilitating the accomplishment of some agreed purpose through allocation of functions and responsibilities. Similar views have been echoed by L.D. White. Okay. Nicholas Henry. Organizations are different creatures to different people. And looking at different facts of various organizations, such phenomena appears to be unavoidable. Such phenomena appears to be unavoidable. Now pay attention to this statement. When we were writing that ministries, departments, corporations, boards have various forms, the statement can be used. Okay. So I will give you the names. All right. Do one thing. Provide me what have they talked about organization. They will act as a fodder for you to write an exam. Goss we have talked about. E. White Blake. E. White Blake. Mooney. James D. Mooney. Chester Bernard. Weber. Thompson. Talcott Parsons. Piffner. Gulick. Gladden. Simon. Arvik. Demock. Robbins. Okay. Just see what they have talked about the organization and you will have a fodder for the exam. Okay. Now, whenever we are looking at organizational behavior, just as an important aspect, whatever we have said, read in the administrative behavior, that will be useful. Okay, so make that connect. Okay. Now, why organization is important? You see, first of all, tell me, are organizations a new phenomena or an old phenomena? It's an old phenomena, right? Organizations have always existed. Some form of organization has always existed, even in the animal kingdom. You see, there would be a queen bee and there will be other bees, right? Beehive and all that. And let us say if I take the example of bees only, so there is going to be a queen bee and then there is going to be other bees, BN, and they will be serving a common purpose. Howsoever rudimentary that purpose can be. Serving a common purpose for what? For whatever their society is. Okay, so these institutions are an inalienable part of any society. An organization is what? It's an institution. Now, any organization which is working for the interest of the society, the interest of the society is in regression or progression?
In progression.
In progression. So it will look for what? Progression. Now qualify that progression. Maximization of resources, maximization of opportunities. If we look at it in the human context, maximization of, let us say, facilities, economic growth, sustainability, happiness, right? Or if I look at modern day governance context for a common citizen, ease of living. Okay, ease of living. Also, the members of the organization impact the organization and get impacted by it. How? It divides the work. There is a training, there are responsibilities, SOPs, rules, regulations, etc. Also, there are multiple functions in an organization. At a very rudimentary sense, I can take the leaf of कहीं एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा. What is administration? Administration is post report. To break down an argument, it is a very handy tool. Break down into specific functions and see. Okay. So they impact the individual and individual impact the organization. Therein we can see how an individual is looking for morale, motivation. How will you provide it? Appraisal hai, training hai, quality of job hai, job enrichment hai, promotion hai, pay, perks, privileges. Link it to personnel administration. Okay. Then the informal aspect of the organization, interpersonal relations, group thinking. Okay. Decentralization, centralization. Also, when this organization is working as part of a larger society, see systems, it will get impacted, it will impact. So when you see an NPM organization, now start seeing organization as an extension of the paradigms. When you see an NPM organization, what will be its focus? Customer centricity, public service delivery. यही होगा ना? So this is how you will have to interlink. So all that leadership, morale, motivation, communication, productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, all are the core part. So there will be certain core activities of an organization, and then there will be activities depending upon the environment that it is dealing with, if it's a public dealing organization or not. Okay. So these things are vital to get in your psyche. Any organization that is working on sound principles will contribute to the growth and development of the society. Otherwise, it will lead to deterioration. Also, the organization will involve itself into various structural functional dimensions. For example, departmentalization, specialization. There would be clear communication, clear lines of authority, power. Okay, so here we are looking at the structural strength of the organization. When I am looking at factors like morale, motivation, etc., I am looking at the mental or the psychological strength of the organization. Okay. So why am I saying these adjectives? That it is important that you garnish your answer with these words. They should be there in your answer. Okay. So while these are the things, in a collective manner, let's have a look at the components of an organization. Division of labor, power, communication, responsibility, goals. Okay. Now take these things at a metaphysical level. These things only. Okay. So any organization will have a DNA of being purposeful. The goals will be what? Specific and limited. There cannot be unlimited goals. Otherwise you end up blurring your goals. Right? कुछ भी चीज unlimited है, infinity तक जा रही है तो the vision gets blurred. Okay. Also, while the interactions, communication, etc. are happening, so what is happening? It's a cooperative activity. Also, organization is not working in isolation, it is working as part of a larger social system. So while it exchanges views, information and entities with environment, largely the notion is that this is an organization, this is its environment, there will be a give and take. It will provide certain goods and services to the environment. All right. Now, the typology, formal and informal. While we have had a look at it with regards to administrative behavior, है ना? Formal organization, informal organization, but there are certain conceptual aspects that are important as well. Okay. Whenever there is a formal aspect of the organization, there will be an explicit purpose, explicit goals, rules. Why? So that the entire effort, physical effort, mechanical effort, as well as psychological effort, or it should be directed towards those goals. That is something which is a trait of the formal organization. So these rules, etc., they will be doing what? Your code of conduct, code of ethics will be doing what? They will be shaping the human behavior inside that organization directed towards that goal. There would be clear lines of communication. Whereas the informal organization, the social part of that organization, is without any such rules of the game. So formal organization, if we look at, it is a deliberately and legitimately planned effort. That does not mean that the informal is illegitimate or illegal. Please understand. Right? Okay. For example, Bernard says an organization is a system of consciously coordinated activities. Okay. So if I talk about the Weberian organization, where will it fall? In the formal space. Okay. So the formal organizations will have a structure, function, stability. What will be the order? Impersonal. Impersonal. There would be division of labor, specialization, etc. Whereas, what will be the kind of leadership, let us say, in informal organizations? It will be informal. There also you will see the stratification will exist. Union leader and normal union member, general secretary. So ऐसा नहीं है that informal organization, it's not like that the informal organization is disorganized. It is random. Understand this difference. It will also have its stratification. It will also have a purpose. Where in the formal organizations, the rules, regulations, protocols direct the human behavior towards the goal. In turn, also they regulate the discipline and conduct. Whereas in informal groups, it is largely the self-discipline and the peer-regulated activity. Now, all the theories that you have read, Fayol, Erwick, all of them are what? They are principles of organizations. ऐसा तो है नहीं that it's not like that the organizations have a separate theoretical base. Right? If I'm talking about a human relationship or human-centric organization and I need a starting point, that starting point will be Mayo and Hawthorne studies. All right? Then there would be certain features in an organization. For example, hierarchy. Span of control. You can use any of those thinkers as well and just mold the argument of the principles that they give as the principles of organization. Hierarchy, span of control, unity of command, authority and responsibility. Whenever there is authority, there is limits on authority as well. Coordination. There would be elements of centralization, decentralization. There would be delegation, supervision. So while we were studying administrative behavior, studying systems theory and contingency theory, those same theories can be used here as well. Okay. Understood so far? Friends viewing this online have understood? Okay. Flip through the pages and let me know if there are any queries, and then we'll see the organizational theories. Chale aage? Should we move forward? You see, broadly there would be many organization theories, but there can be a classification made. That is closed model or universal design theories, or open model or situational design theories. You see, a closed model, universal design theory will follow what? It will follow classical ideas of universalization. That is one best way. So your SMT, bureaucratic theory, theories of administrative management, all will come here. Whereas the behavioral approach, systems approach, structural functional approach, human relations theory, all will come here. Okay, write down the differences between the two. This will be a broad set of differences based on whether you are using behavioral, human relations, etc. You can tweak them. Closed model. Organization will have a hierarchical structure. So component will be structure, closed model, hierarchical, open model will be fluidic network. Fluidic network. Type of tasks. Closed model will be routine task at stable conditions. Open model, non-routine tasks at unstable conditions. Closed model, focus is on means. Focus is on means, that is the tools to do the job. Whereas open model, the focus is on ends. Focus is on ends. Open model, you will have task specialization. In an open model, what will happen? A person might have a knowledge of something, but that person will be expected to perform various tasks. Manner of conflict resolution. In closed, it will be highly centralized. Raja Saab decide karenge that what will happen. Okay? Whereas in open models, it is more through horizontal means. That is through peer interactions and peer intervention. Responsibility in closed model, responsibility is very intimately linked with the formal job description. Whereas in the open model, responsibility is there, but it is not job description centric. Rather, it is collaborative. Members are asked to collaborate and solve the problems. Loyalty. Loyalty is to what? Loyalty is to the bureaucratic subunit. Whereas in an open model, it is to the organization as a whole. Let's have a look. Link it with law and order, okay? Have a look. Thana, police station. So interestingly, I don't know how many of you have well traveled in Delhi. So there is a bridge on the Yamuna river. So a chain snatching happens in this bridge. Now obviously a common citizen is in problem because he was traveling in this direction. As soon as the bridge ends, he looked for the nearest police station and goes and complains. Police says, where the chain snatching happened? On the X on or before the X end of the river? Or these are practical problems. You go and see, right? Or on the Y end of the river. The fellow is traumatized. A lady is traumatized. The chain has been snatched and Allah mach gaya pura. And how will she know? Because she is in a moving public transport or on a bike or on a scooty or on an auto, right? And she is in a fix. She says, I don't remember. No. Because we will not register. Though she is a lady, a chain snatching has happened. A zero FIR can be registered. But they won't do it. They will pass the buck. Now the lady will turn, go back and look for a police station here. They will ask the same questions. So the loyalty, because this is a closed system, the loyalty of this Thana is to it, not to the larger goal. That is to maintain law and order, to provide a crime-free society. Understood the difference? This is the difference between the closed model and an open model.
So what can we put in the current examples for open model?
In the current example, you can put the decentralized help desk. For example, Rail Seva that is there. The focus is what? Public grievances platforms. But if those public grievances platforms are working as part of the closed model, then they will be closed in their approach.
For example, RTI.
RTI would serve as an open model. But again, you see, the edifice of RTI, see, there is no right or wrong in this. You will have to see the grey lines. Edifice of RTI is common. But the departments are in silos. Interesting case. So you can practically file an RTI anywhere, and that RTI has to be routed to the desired department. I mean, you need not be Harish Salve to file an RTI, right? Any common man, mango people can file the RTI. So, what's the hierarchy of the RTI? There is a public information official, there is an appellate authority, then there is a CIC or an SIC, whatever the case may be, and then you have the High Court, and then you have the Supreme Court, or rather courts. One can directly go to the court, Supreme Court as well. Now, a person filed an RTI with the PIO of Supreme Court. Hear this. This is an actual case. Okay. And he sought an information, PIO did not give. He went to the next logical step, appellate authority. Appellate authority did not give. Now the matter, Supreme Court is fighting a case in CIC. CIC orders that you give the case, information. Why are you troubling the fellow? Give the information. Supreme Court registry sits merry and says that we will not. Kar lo kya kar loge. After CIC, what is the platform? Courts? High Court. Now Supreme Court is a party to a case in High Court. High Court says, give. Now the matter is back in Supreme Court. The golden rule of law says that you cannot be a judge of your own case. Okay, so the point is this, that you have to see, it is not that RTI is going to be open, like fully open. There are going to be considerations. Even in RTI, you have section 8 and other exceptions. Yeah. So the point is this, that you will have to see this. So with regards to open model, you will have to take these things with a pinch of salt, but largely you can say that yes, they are the good examples of open models, wherein the centralized grievance redressal. For example, if I talk about open model, you will have to see the spirit. The spirit is customer satisfaction. So you have this CP grams, Central Public Grievance Redressal Management and Management System. है ना? Even in the Umang app, how many of you have Umang app? Umang app on your phone? Arey dalo, see, these are the examples of e-governance. You can see those things in motion. Okay. Alright, moving further. About the information exposure. You see, in a closed system, only the top echelons or the chief executive will have the entire system view. Whereas in a open model, everybody will know something, but there will not be a person who is a know-all person. Everybody will know what their role is. So, when I talk from closed to open, look here friends, administrative reforms, Mission Karam Yogi, from rules to, ठीक है? So, whenever you are talking about an administrative reform, if you make the line like this, transitioning of the system from closed to open system, बस इतनी सी बात है. Okay. Closed model, emphasis or rather obsession with hierarchy. So the interactions will largely be vertical. Whereas in open systems, you will see a lot many horizontal interactions. Since it's hierarchical, the closed model will have clear superordinate-subordinate relationships. It will be about obedience, clear command. Whereas in an open model, there will be aid, suggestions, advice, discussion. Now, please be very clear that the nature of the organization is very, very closely related to the purpose of the organization. Should I make armed forces open organizations? No. They have a different role altogether. Should I make police organizations open organizations?
No.
Now it's the debate. Herein lies the grey line. Please understand. So any organization will have a balance. Depending upon its nature. So while the disciplinary command control functions of the policing, the internal working should be a closed system, but its public dealing aspect should be a open system. Because ultimately it's a belt organization, it's an organization which is premised on discipline. Also, you will have to see what kind of a policing system do we have. In case of India, it's Irish constabulary, not the London Bobby system, right? So whenever there is Irish constabulary, you have a heavy pyramidal structure. You will have to look at the structure as well. So that structure has multiple entry points. Whereas in countries where the people-friendly police is there, the structure is relatively flatter with uniform entry points. So the transition that from this to this, it cannot be sudden. This is fully closed and this is reasonably open. But you cannot have a transition, sudden transition. Now, please understand, in a closed system, such is the rule obsession that the obedience to the superiors are emphasized even at the cost of performance. Whereas the idea of excellence is emphasized in open system. So any organization that is into public service delivery should be largely open, whereas organizations which are into specialized functions like defense, etc., they need to be closed. Opening them will not serve the purpose. Okay. Similarly, since it's a heavily hierarchical Weberian sort of a structure, the closed organization, you will emphasize upon rank, office, personal status. Whereas in an open organization, the professional ability, reputation will determine the personal status. So when we talk about this in closed, it is internalized. Whereas in open, it is externalized. Clear? Clear? Okay. Any doubts, friends watching us online? Okay. Then let us very briefly touch upon the systems theory. I'm touching it upon again. I took it up yesterday also. Just a broader diagram. Okay. So you have the environment which is providing the input. Then you are going through a transformation. Right? This transformation is leading to an output. And this output is feeding to environment. Okay. Also, there is an element of feedback that is going. Now, if you need to analyze any organization from systems, इसको बड़े ध्यान से, very carefully. Society is the environment. Yeah, let me actually take it up like this. है ना? It will give input. Okay? Input would entail organization. It will have certain goals, practices, it will have certain manpower, resources, etc. Then it will carry out its functioning. It will lead to certain goals. Those goals will again impact the society. ठीक है जी. Now, using this approach as a framework, we studied the, a question, we took up a question wherein it was said that systems theory is a framework to study organization. Right? So you see scholars like Bernard are doing what? They are using this very systems approach. Simon is doing what? Okay. It is also looking at the systems approach. Okay. Now there is one thing which is called as cybernetic. पढ़ा है? क्या है?
Basically, it's a form of a structure of networking on cyberspace.
नहीं. I'm not asking the SNT definition. The cybernetic model which uses the systems approach to determine organizational behavior. You see, organization is a social system. Okay. And we are actually viewing this organization. इधर देख लो पहले. See, this is an organization. We are looking at it from the lens of systems approach using cybernetic framework, wherein there are different anybody who's an engineer. कौन सी इंजीनियरिंग है? कंप्यूटर साइंस है. डिस्क्रीट मैथमेटिक्स तो पढ़ी होगी. अरे ऐसे नहीं थे, शॉर्टेस्ट रूट निकालते थे, है ना? डिस्क्रीट मैथमेटिक्स. Okay. So the point is this, that we are putting the organization and looking at through a stencil of, let us say, cybernetics model. Now, the behavior in this organization will be judged on what? These relationships. So, these organizations, the social aspect will be very, very self-steering, peer-controlled, will be based on the feedback, and all of these things will be used to control the individual behavior. So they will end up developing mechanisms to collect, interpret and apply feedback in their decision making. So basically the blood stream of this is the flow of information and the interactions. It's kind of a neural network, you're very right. So there is a whole field which is called as management cybernetics. If you look at the general systems approach, psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists, economists, political scientists, everybody is using the systems approach. Okay? Now, Churchman, I made you write Churchman, right? Yesterday? Yes. Now, look at the limitations of systems approach. कल लिखवाया था ना? Systems approach, considerations, system performance, measures, environment, constraints.
Yes, sir.
फाइव बेसिक कंसिडरेशंस. मैं वही तो कहूँ यार, मेरे को तो याद है, मैं तो रट के आया था. ठीक है. You see, the systems approach help us as a conceptual framework, but there is vagueness because the actual environment is very, very complex. Okay? While we can identify that yes, organization is a whole system, there are subsystems, but the qualifications of the relationships that exist in that organizations, they are difficult to distinctly and objectively identify. Also, the approach does not help us in identifying the nature of those relationships. Largely, you see, systems approach or the proponents of systems approach say that this systems approach is so flexible that it has become universal. So the idea of universality have been questioned. For example, the cybernetic model, which is an extension of the systems approach, it is applicable to large complex organizations. Can I make it applicable to a bakery supplying loaf of bread in a particular locality?
It's too much complication for that.
Rather, the cybernetic model will suit a complex organization, but it will not suit a simple organization. There, the systems approach fails. Therefore, where the systems approach fails, comes the situational and contingency approach. Okay. Again, we have same people, Fiedler, Thompson. How situational factors actually influence. Okay. Now, broadly, let us have a look at those factors. The first one being the technology or the task. Next being the adaptation to the environment. Natural selection. You see, natural selection. Now come here, understand. There is this startup boom, which I call as a startup bubble. COVID happens, so many people jump into the e-learning space. Look at what happened to Byju's, Unacademy and all those people. Most of the organizations fail within first few years. And that is the order of natural selection related to situational and contingency. Because they are simply not able to satisfy. So any organization that is well adapted to the environment will survive. There is dependence. There is institutionalization. You see, what happens? Institutionalization, let me tell you how. Uncertain circumstances, situation, some organization emerge as a part of the natural selection. Then what others will be doing? They will be replicating what successful framework has been institutionalized. Right? All of these startups are doing now the same thing. They're practically nothing but same things with different monograms or logos. Look at Zomato, look at Food Panda, look at Swiggy, look at Blinkit, look at Zepto, look at Instamart. Interestingly, when you will see many of those, rather 95% of those are not in operating profit. Okay. But one model got successful. Chalo ji, theek hai. Okay. See, the advantage, I'm not getting into Fiedler's theory and all those things. I guess you have those. Okay. So the advantage that contingency brings is that it is practical. It helps the leaders and managers study through contingency approach the various broad components and help bring about efficiency. When I say it is practical, that means that the linkage between theory and practice is very, very strong. Also, in change management, contingency approach can be used to bring about an orderly change. It can handle a dynamic transition. Has a wide range of applicability. Now there are critics. Some of the critics says that contingency theory is not even a theory. It's simply an orientation strategy. It is something of an action-reaction thing. It lacks the empirical basis. Also, the theories which we label as contingency theories, they are ambiguous. What is it? Most of them are saying fit to the environment. What's the point in this? Okay. Piffner criticizes certain models as being too abstract. You see, Piffner was a systems guy. So obviously he won't like the contingency. Okay. Now, let us look at the structure and forms. And here I am giving you the conceptual ground for it. One was this open and closed system, right? Now, if we keep goal as a center, okay, Parsons, Talcott Parsons, provide us some insight. So those organizations will be production organizations, political organization, integrative organizations. Integrative would mean settle conflict, arbitrate, resolution, all those things. Okay. And the last would be pattern maintenance organization. Another classification has been given by Katz and Kahn. Katz and Kahn. Basically, they have taken a leaf out of Parsons' book and further enriched it. So they say production or economic. Managerial or political. There in managerial or political, they incorporate the aspect of adjudication, coordination, control, etc. Then they talk about adaptive organization. And then the maintenance organization. Itzioni. अरे इट्जियोनी पता है कहाँ पढ़ा है? Itzioni, where have you read Itzioni? कुछ याद आ रहा है? पब्लिक पॉलिसी, इंक्रीमेंटलिज्म वगैरह वगैरह. ऐसे याद रहेगा तो फिर फायदा क्या है मेंस का? So Itzioni is actually looking at it from the lens of compliance, just like Parsons was looking at from the lens of goals. Now please understand why am I giving these views. Whenever boards, departments, etc., and everything that comes, you should use the views as they suit. Okay? So wherever the authority will be coercive, compliance will get alienated. Okay? Because compliance is a calculated and utilitarian idea. It's a moral idea. Okay? So compliance is going to be alienated where there is going to be coercive authority. Compliance is going to be moral where authority is expressed through persuasion. And it is going to be utilitarian where remuneration is going to be the basis of authority. In most organizations, you will see a combination of all these things. Okay, so any organization, now coming to the structures and forms, will have a chief executive. Okay, just keep in mind the structure of the government. Chief executive can be one person or a body consisting of multiple persons. and therefore the administration of that organization relies heavily on the chief executive. Please understand. Paper 2, Office of Prime Minister, Office of Chief Minister, Cabinet system, comparative public administration, monarchies, republics, autocracies, democracies. All of it can be linked. Okay? So, for example, in a monarchical system, the chief executive is going to be the monarch. Right? King of England, Sultan of somewhere, or queen, whatsoever. In a democratic system,
They represent
either the president or the prime minister. Okay? Or the prime minister, and largely we will not term it as a prime minister, we would term it as a council of ministers. Okay? So in that case, you will have a functional chief executive and a nominal chief executive. So nominal chief executive will be the president in case of India. Okay? So through this, you can actually view, certain characteristics. For example, there is going to be a fixed tenure. In certain systems, you will see that the legislature cannot control that chief executive. The chief executive can dissolve the legislature. Somewhere you will see that the members are taken from legislature as members of the larger council. For example, in India, whereas in countries like United States, the members of the cabinet are not the members of the legislature. There the spoil system prevails. So that is one individual. Then council of ministers as chief executive would entail that it's a pluralistic body. So there are going to be different systems. Okay, they will have now take the leaf out of Indian Constitution. There would be various functions, legislative functions, executive functions, all those things. This is not going to be a polity class. I will not conduct it like that. Okay, so please, for your benefit, when you will add example, add the provisions of the Constitution. Okay. Then, if you look at a ministry, I'm not getting into that. There the direct responsibilities there, UK, in India, indirect responsibility, all those aspects. Okay. Basically, what is a ministry? It's a specialized organization. It's a specialized organization to cater to a particular sector of the larger public administration duties by the state or government. Because this will come in use with union government and administration, state government and administration. Okay. So a ministry is headed by a minister. Then you have further chain of officials from secretary to downwards. Okay. It can have one or more departments, agencies, bureaus, commissions, other advisory or managerial organizations. So a state will have multiple ministries. And their character varies from time to time. For example, we created some time back a new ministry of cooperation. अब तक क्यों नहीं बनाई थी?
Because of the rising demand now.
Exactly. So it is contextual. It is based on ecology. है ना? So based on changing demands from time to time and other factors such as the volume of work, importance, so new ministries have been created. Acha, you will also know that many ministries are merged together. Their orientations are changed. So for example, there used to be a ministry called MHRD, which is now Ministry of Education. Okay. When we look at this and the chief executive, PM slash and or cabinet, depend karta hai na what kind of a system it is. So a ministry is subordinate to the chief executive, prime minister, president, or let us say chancellor or secretary general. Just in case of China, you have the secretary general of Communist Party at the top. So ministry will have certain functions. There will be various departments, but also every ministry will have a administrative node to discharge the work. So there will be an administrative organization to assist that minister. But then also in the modern day nation system, you might have different ministries, right? For example, in Pakistan or in some theocratic country, you might have a ministry for religious affairs, like Taliban has, no? Right? Even Iran has it. We saw how the burqa and the protests and all things. So that may vary, but there are in modern state system there are going to be certain common ministry. For example, defense, external relations, okay, finance, okay, home. You might call it by different names. For example, we might call it Ministry of External Affairs. United States might call it State Department. And that has also basis in its historical basis. You see, America came together because of the gun. Recently, Trump was fired upon. Now, America had a civil war. Have we had a civil war? Of the there might be certain civil unrest, insurgency, etc. But they had to establish a Department of State to ensure harmonious
relation between different constitutions of different
states. So that is actually the basis. Then eventually it transforms into an external affairs ministry, and the Ministry of Interior takes over the affairs. So there are bases how they are called. Secretary of State, we will call it as Minister for External Affairs, not even Foreign Minister. That is not an official terminology of Government of India. For official terminology and structures, I would refer you, do not go by any book. Any book out there, don't go by it.
See, that was Indian yearbook.
Yes, very right, ma'am. It's India yearbook. That is not the Manorama or, Champa or this. That is going to be what is a Government of India publication which comes by India followed by year. That you can follow, and the Indias. Okay. ठीक है जी. And all the important ministries form the part of the cabinet. And all the lower ranked ministries are held largely accountable to the cabinet and have a very little to no say in the policy making. They are the execution agencies. Similar is the case of ministers. Recently swearing hui na. Okay. So wherever there is a heavy ministry, big ministry, you have certain MOSs. And then there are certain portfolios which are kept with the chief executive. So there you will have MOS IC, Swatantra Prabhar. Okay. Similarly, you have the line staff and other auxiliary agency to translate the government's work on the ground. Okay. Now the questions, like I said, and like I read it out at the beginning of the session, largely the questions are on accountability, autonomy, control, coordination, etc. Similar is the case of line and staff. The terminology, I hope all of you are aware, have been taken from the military, lexicon. Okay. So different branches perform different agencies. A staff agency does the planning, organization, coordination, advice, whereas the line agency is the charge of implementation. So it is the line agency which is at the ground level. So now you have a topic of citizen administration interaction. If at the first port of call to reform this for better, will I have to work at staff level or at line level?
At line.
At line level. Regarding the execution, for example, attitudinal changes. Whereas the policy level overhaul will happen at staff level. So please understand. How many of you have recently traveled in Shatabdi? Shatabdi Express? Rajdhani? Right? Things like that. So now they have tablets to actually verify the tickets. Okay. And the moment you enter the train and you get the seat, and they will wish you like good morning or good evening, sir or ma'am. Earlier also tablets were there, but they were not so courteous in their behavior or so hospitable. Yes, they were polite, not unlike a regular, चालू ticket वाली train का TC. हाँ ticket कहाँ है? Right? It's not like that. But still, there is a shift. Okay? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Right? Things like that. That is the line reform that I'm carrying out. Whereas, if I'm overhauling or designing a training program to bring in better hospitality of railways, that will happen at the staff level. Okay? So, things like that have to be known. Okay? Now, this equation gets complex between line and staff, where actually the authority resides in staff. Right? So, even the line cannot change it. Cannot change it. They will have, otherwise they will be in conflict with the established rules. That is why you see the focus has been brought upon roles. Now let me actually bring an interesting analogy. As part of Citizens Charter, we reform the process into more measurable, quantifiable, concrete goals. So let us say there was this agency which issues some kind of a certificate. Pre-Citizens Charter era. Okay. So Vivek and I go to apply for a liquor license. Business. Okay. So we go here. This person is only there to receive it. हाँ ठीक है. Okay. This person verifies the task. Similarly, another filing happens here. This person approves, this person does something, and they finally dispatches. And there was no time for this. Okay, no specified time. Citizens Charter came in, and what they have done is they have simply the upper echelons, the staff. This is the line agency. Staff, some big babus are sitting. And what they have done is, oh, this is a process of 5 days. We will put in Citizens Charter 5 days. But the man on the ground knows that most of the people, let us say, who are coming for liquor license, like, uh, a Garibi card or a BPL card, BPL card, they are illiterate fellows. Most of them have errors in their forms. And it takes multiple cycles to actually happen. So instead of 5 days, it takes 15 days. But some Babu decided that it should take 5 days because they are away from ground reality. And based on that, they made the Citizens Charter. Acha. Now come to the modern era, wherein the identity can be verified by OTP and Aadhaar. So these two desks were not needed. But you haven't modified the process. Why? Because the staff agency has the authority to modify the process. They are simply the implementators. They cannot modify the process. Or even the staff agency might be handicapped because the process might be enshrined in a law. So that will be delegated upwards to parliament or legislature to bring about the change. So all this is hampering the public service delivery. ये लॉजिक समझ में आ रहा है? So the point of conflict between what is necessary, it's not an either or situation. It is the harmonization which is necessary. So where does the authority lie? That is one of the central questions, or where it should be. How should be the command? So can a traditional Weberian organization be a very specific public service delivery organization? No. As an organization, it can be very efficient. But will it translate into public service delivery? That is questionable. So, cut to organizations in the NPM era. Yes, they are good. But will the traditional structure work? No. So, you will have to do what? You will have to do decentralization. Better departmentalization. That means you will have to go back to the drawing board. Do better division of work. Delegation. That is why second ARC says no more than 3 levels that a file should pass from where it originates. We'll have to develop mechanisms. So these things are important. Link it with administrative reforms, structure of government of India, central government, state government administration, even district administration. This part is getting clear to you? ये समझ में आ गया? You look lost.
No.
Okay. Clear है ना? या फिर से बताऊं? So what do we call this when we realign the process? We call it the BPR, business process reengineering. This is also a part of technique of administrative improvement. Explicitly not given in the syllabus, but it is there. Okay. So with the growth of functions, so at times there is exchange of functions. Certain line functions will have to go upwards and certain staff functions will have to come downwards. While there are housekeeping agencies or auxiliary agencies, which we call them auxiliary agencies. They largely serve the line and not directly the public.
That is too sensitive of us.
Uh, So they directly do not serve the public, they serve the line departments largely. So for example, recruitment, contracting, purchasing, storing, supplies, keeping accounts. Some of these scholars actually merge these auxiliary agencies with the staff. For example, Fifner.
Mostly staff is the decision making body.
It's a decision and policy making body, but scholars like Fifner are saying that they perform multiple functions. General functions, then they perform the auxiliary functions as well as the technical functions. Because staff and auxiliary body, whether you are taking them as a unified entity or as a separate entity, they facilitate the implementation for the line agencies. Then you look at the line agencies. Line agencies would entail department, public corporations, commissions, and boards. Commissions and boards. Okay. Departmentalization again, integrated departmentalization, disintegrated departmentalization. Now another homework with regards to departmentalization, boards, commissions. I need their typology with views of scholars. For example, Gulick says that purpose, process, person and place should be the factors that decide the organization of department. Then you have Wallace, then you have L.D. White. Okay. Then you have departmentalization based on processes. Each of them will have their advantages and disadvantages. Have a look at them. Then you might have the geography as a principle, clientele or type of commodity or customer service as a principle for departmentalization. Generally, you will see that a mix is preferred. Okay. Similarly, just Google and read through the ministries and departments in various countries, including India. You know where to go, India Yearbook, etc. USA, UK, see China. After mains, if you have time, there is a book by Vijay Gokhale, who happened to be an ex-envoy to China as well as the foreign secretary. Okay. Vinay Mohan Quatra se pehle the na ye foreign secretary Vijay Gokhale. Is considered as a China man, China expert, not a China man like in cricket. Okay. So there is a book by him from Tiananmen to something. I don't remember the entire title. Very interesting book. It gets you insight into how Chinese system operate. Now, similar is the case of the corporations. But I want you to write the difference between a public corporation and department. And this should serve as a blueprint, as a template for you to write and compare the other entities that are. Okay. Why I am bringing this up? Because a lot many PSUs, the departments are being transformed into, public corporations, etc. Like I said, corporatization happened of Ordnance Factory Board. Okay. So public corporation is like a public business enterprise. Whereas the departmental system will be found in the state regulatory activities. You understand? The ministry is going to regulate, there is going to be a Department of Finance, Department of Expenditure. So it is into regulation space. So public corporation would be separate from the politics of business, separate the politics from the business functions. So it will be a far more flexible, experimentation oriented. It will be free from rigid and dictatorial regulations. Therefore, the corporation is far more suited to adapt to the environmental demands. Whereas in departments, you will see a lot of red tape, status quoism, a complex web of rules and regulations, and will be less responsive to the exigencies. You see, the character of corporation is to generate wealth, also to spend it. Whereas departments are generally the spending agencies. A public corporation will have its own assets, liability, a sort of a self-sustaining system, which are different from government. It will have administrative and financial autonomy, unlike a department. A public corporation can take long-term decisions independently. There is freedom of action. A public corporation is not affected by political changes. The processes, the management in the public corporation can be far more professional. You see, a lot of these corporations, when we talk about, are statutory corporations. So changes in them is not easy. Whereas changes in a department, its structure, merging, etc. can happen at an unchecked will. Remember the word unchecked will of the chief executive. I'm talking about democratic systems, right? I'm not talking about the dictatorships. How many of you have seen the movie Dictator? Dictator, when he goes to US and है so there it can happen at will, right? Next, there are certain disadvantages as well. Largely we have talked about the differences in terms of advantages of the cooperation.
Public corporations are under the ministry's
They,
departments.
yes, you see, you say that it is a PSU under a ministry. It's a public corporation. So the public character, but it does not work like a department. It is backed by a statute. So the modalities cannot be changed when the minister is getting changed or the secretary is getting changed. Every Ratna companies will have a graded degree. So the Maharatna will have the most degree of autonomy based on the sector and their financial might that they might have. Then there are companies like ONGC which are practically working like private enterprises. So it depends where you are actually putting them. Okay. So largely we have talked about the advantages of corporations vis-a-vis the departments. Okay. Then let us talk about the disadvantages. In true sense, public corporations, while theoretically on paper are detached, etc., but often there is interference from the political executive. Now you see, board of directors of these very public corporations, because they have to follow a corporate structure, there are statutes, there are companies law with which they have to sort of, compliances are there. But what about the board of directors? Generally, the board of directors are the members who are associated with the political ideology or are sympathizers of a particular political ideology. You see, all the government PSUs, you will find that the ruling establishment will place its people as board of directors. Yes, they would be independent directors. They will follow the corporate governance norms vis-a-vis gender inclusivity, female director, independent, but they will continue to retain an influence. Largely, you will see that a lot many such public corporations will have serving or retired civil servants. Those are of the same breed, the way they were running the departments. They might not have the technical knowledge. Also, the overarching diktats, the social motives of the state might actually derail the project of profit making. You see that the demands that the government is making to give certain dividend to the state exchequer by, let us say, companies like LIC, ONGC, etc. So those things are significant. It's just that they have a separate legal status. So an ONGC versus, let us say, Vivek or Abhishek will not be Government of India versus Vivek or Abhishek. That's a separate corporate entity. Also, it is backed by a statute. It will be registered. Either it will be a statutory body or it will be registered under certain companies. For example, under Companies Act Section 5. Okay. So these things are there. Now, obviously, with regards to elements of parliamentary control, in India, you have the various committees on public undertakings, etc. Okay. One of the major examples of a corporation would be, tell me a good example.
Corporation, HAL is there.
HL वगैरह तो ठीक है. Ever thought about RBI? Now, take RBI and Government of India as a blueprint, and now you will have the clarity how to deal with corporations. I have to tell nothing on this. ठीक है. The good, bad, ugly, everything will come out. है ना? Similarly, do a comparative analysis vis-a-vis US. You see, when the Keynesian economics was dictating after the Great Depression, a large many public corporations came to, rise in US. right? And as of today, many of these corporations are not now there anymore because the private sector has taken over. Some of them which are there, they are under the budgetary and administrative control of the executive. For example, Federal Crop Insurance Corporation, Federal Nation Mortgage Association, Federal Savings and Loan Association, Tennessee Valley Authority, New York Port Authority. Okay.
Still under government. Tennessee.
Huh. Tennessee Valley, actually, this Hoover Dam and other things were created, no?
Because they have replicated that in DBC at Tennessee Valley.
Huh.
Damodar Valley.
Damodar Valley project, we have replicated the idea. Actually, we haven't really replicated the idea, so as to say, but the magnitude of the Damodar Valley project was so that we adopted a similar structure. Why am I saying this? Because even before the Damodar Valley project, you have had projects. For example, this Bhakra Nangal project, etc. So you end up creating these corporations to provide electricity, either directly or later.
That was basically based on that geographical nature.
Exactly. The geography dictated the creation of public corporation. Similarly, you have this, which canal is that? Panama Canal, Suez Canal, etc. So all of them are corporations of their respective national governments. Okay. So try and have a comparative view, right? Then the companies are there. You can take the leaf out of economics. What is a company? There can be joint stock companies. There can be single, individual companies, mixed ownership companies. Then there can be government companies in which the capital is extended by the government and board of directors are set up. Okay, and all of these structures have advantages as well as disadvantages. Public limited company, private limited company, LLP, limited liability company. Okay. Similarly,
Mohammed says that the job they're not going to create a privatization.
repeat what you are saying.
Then in Mohammed there is written that governments, one of the aim of the government to create a private entities or
Create private entity or privatization. What are you saying?
privatization
Huh.
of departmentalization. It should not be, the government should not be there with the purpose of running corporations.
You see, there is a view. Whenever you, let us say, you are making from a department to a company, just like the corporatization of ordnance factory boards happened. Ultimately, the central idea is to bring in more efficiency, more productivity. Okay, even when you are disinvesting, let us say. Now, what is the idea of disinvesting? Disinvesting is dictated by which philosophy? Neoliberal philosophy, NPM, better service delivery, government being not in a place where it has no business to do. Right? So when Professor Bhattacharya says that the government should not actually do this, what is the reasoning he is giving?
To increase the efficiency and public delivery better and to remove it from that the structural model. That's why I think that.
What is the conflict? I'm not getting. दोबारा बोलो.
Sir, अभी that's the problem कि ज़्यादा the government is selling its stakes from various companies or so, because it's not the purpose of the government to
see. What you are referring to is that what government is doing as part of the disinvestment agenda is to limit its fiscal deficit it is selling. Okay, so that should not be the criteria to sell. The criteria to sell should be to bring about more improvement in efficiency. That is correct. What Professor Bhattacharya. Now I could recall no which point you are referring. So merely to fill fiscal deficit, you are embarking upon a disinvestment agenda, and the efficiency and improvement in public service delivery becomes almost like a sideshow. That is where it is problematic. Okay, so this is the critique which is fine, which is given by Professor Bhattacharya. Friends watching us online are getting it. So two homeworks I have given already, right? Now see the difference between statutory corporations and government companies. You see, the method of their creation differs. And through this, we are actually touching upon the PSU unit of paper 2 as well. Okay, ownership pattern, role of the non-official directors also differ. A government company would entail where the government has a stake of minimum 51% equity or shareholding, whereas a corporation is fully owned by the government. When you disinvest it, that's a different thing. Okay. A company can issue bonds, debentures, shares so that it can attract capital. There can be active involvement of private sector. Whereas a statutory corporation is created by a specific statute. Okay, largely if you will see, the difference actually comes from the fact how they are created. Okay, let me come to boards and commissions. You see, boards and commissions are generally formed when a group of people are selected, or if it is a democratic process through which they come, selected or elected to perform a specific function collectively. It is also referred to as certificate of office, like a UPSC. Very specific surgical function, no? UPSC is recruiting for defense services, but it is not the in charge of defense. It has a very specific purpose, recruitment. Okay. Board, you see, the members largely work in a collective manner. Whereas a commission can have a board characteristics as well as independent as well. So you see, like this. Okay, so board will act in collective manner, whereas in a commission, uh, it can function, it's also multi-member idea. It can function as a board, and it can also have members acting individually for distinct functionality. There is another view by a scholar, Graves. Okay, he says that the word board should be used when the body is in charge with the administrative duties or regulatory duties. When they are when it relates to matters other than public utility. Whereas a commission word should be used when the body is charged with important regulatory duties concerning public utility. But often, more often than not, you have these bodies being used, named interchangeably. Also, we see how commissions and boards are set up for certain specialized functions to give certain recommendations on certain matters. For example, finance commission, planning commission, etc. Okay. Then you have the ad hoc and advisory bodies, committees which are formed. Kelkar committee, Rangarajan committee, this committee, that committee. Okay. Then let me come to a very important idea, regulatory authorities. This, please do it with a far degree of sensitivity because this is important. This has been asked most number of times in recent years. So what happens? An agency is created and the legislature empowers that agency. For what? For enforcement of a law, to develop rules and regulations that have a force of law. And to help public, general public, in terms of complying with laws and rules. Now the law itself, that is the act of legislature or the constitutions, define the remit of the delegation of powers on these agencies. Take any regulator, for example, SEBI, right? TRAI, IRDA, any of those regulators. Even we can say RBI is also a regulator. It is regulating the banking sector, bhai. है ना? NBFCs, right? Okay. So it's a government agency. Now, some of those regulators can be part of government, while the independent regulatory agencies will have a arm's length relationship with the government. Okay, that is the difference. Obviously, the arm's length relationship brings in more autonomy, more freedom, more flexibility, etc. Generally, the independent regulatory agencies are single purpose agencies. Okay. For example, if you look at the independent commissions, regulatory commissions in India, the Indian model is largely borrowed from the US, where such agencies originated in the first place. They are in the form of commissions. For example, Election Commission, Finance Commission, TRAI, IRDA, etc. So they perform a variety of functions: administrative, adjudicative, that means quasi-judicial. They frame rules and laws They frame guidelines and hence quasi-legislative. Understood? I hope that you all will go back home, revise all things, and then come to me if you have any queries. Otherwise, the purpose gets defeated. Also, I am deliberately not getting into the details because I am assuming that you all are writing mains and you all know it. But just in case you have any queries, you have the access to me outside the classroom as well through various channels, Telegram, WhatsApp, email, etc., etc. So please feel free to get in touch. Okay. Next is something which is again vital: HQ and field relationships. The idea will be similar to staff and line agencies. Okay. So I am not getting into a lot. The focus obviously, like the staff and line, will be on the relationship. How communication happens, how control happens, where the authority and power lays, etc. All those elements. Last but not the least, from this particular unit, the PPP, public-private partnerships. Okay. So like I said, that the idea of contracting out is not new. But the way we see PPPs in present form, they originated in 1970s and 80s. Why? Because you see, simple, ecology. 1970s, you remember oil crisis, all those things. So obviously government's own purse was constrained. Yet it wanted to carry out the work. So therefore, the PPP was engaged, or the idea was largely engaged in infrastructure initially.
Earlier, all mining towns and resorts were on PPP basis.
Right, the initial mining towns, etc., all of them were on PPP basis globally, not in India.
All sectors which are highly capital intensive.
Not highly, we cannot say capital intensive, because every sector, governmental activity is multifaceted, and for every activity government needs capital, right? What you are looking at is the industrial sector, which is capital incentive. If let us say I need to provide food grains to all, it needs capital, right? So the point here is that where in the investment can fructify, because understand, you are incorporating or involving a private entity. Iska motive kya hai? What's the motive? Profit. So will it engage itself in an unprofitable? No. So what if I today that okay, today I am providing subsidy to poor, which amongst Tata, Reliance or Birla would like to provide subsidy? They are going to say namaste. Right. So you will have to incorporate. It's a marriage of convenience. That what you are getting is a long-term project wherein you can invest and reap dividends. What government is getting is something that is the creation of development of ancillary industries, jobs.
In highways,
Like in highways we are seeing.
Also in railways.
Railways also we are saying. Basically infrastructure was the initial era, because infrastructure has a lot of multiplier effect that is being dictated by the logic of economics. It creates lot many ancillary industries, supply chains, direct, indirect labor, right? So all those things. And the idea was that this will generate something and this will come back and it will be a win-win for all. Because the moment government's own purse is contracting, that's a terrible situation. I mean, look at Pakistan, right? But I always admire the prophetic qualities of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. He said that we shall eat grass, but we will have bomb. And now they have a bomb and they are eating grass. Okay, so that's fine. All right. So the idea was, gaining currency in 70s and 80s, and the government wanted to encourage the investment in the infrastructure initially, because you see, in the government accounting also, this was dictated by the way administration was running. There was no distinction between the capital investment and the recurrent investment. So it was problematic. Okay. The idea was that it is going to entail no cost to the public at large. Okay. But this idea soon met realism and said that cannot happen. You need better service, then you will have to pay tolls. Okay. So that is why you see various models have come up. BOT, built operate transfer. BOOT, boot, boat. Okay. So various governments based on their own ideologies invoke the idea of PPT globally in differing measures. Okay. Today, if you find, the idea of PPP has broadened the space. And made inroads into not just infrastructure but other things. Right? I would call electricity also infrastructure. I would call water supply also infrastructure, but into sanitation, energy, right? Urban infrastructure, whether it is
Even Aadhaar card was.
Aadhaar card, passport service. I mean, you are there, it is more of a contracting out, not PPP. It is not PPP. It is contracting out. Okay. So, the state had a limited financial purse, and hence this PPP actually was emerging as a viable media. Also, you see how it is happening. In case of India, if you will see this, obviously we were late vis-a-vis the earlier, the global world. We were late by 20 years. So what was happening in the world in 70s, we were actually making it happen in 90s. But realize, government's financial purse contracted, the BOP crisis. Also, see the current. What is the current? Theoretical and in as an activity. The current is NPM, PCT, governance, good governance. Also, this gets compounded with technology. And now see the constitutional development. 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. All of it is bringing the stress on service delivery, decentralization, bottom-up democracy. So the environment became conducive for PPP to foster. Imagine PPP to foster in 1970s in India, when the trade unions, etc. And there's a very famous photo during emergency of late Shri George Fernandez. Great man, of course. People might have ideological differences. That's aside, with handcuffs. Okay. So the point is, it could not have happened in the 70s.
Mostly 70s was dominated by CPI.
Exactly. There were leftist currents. But also you will have to understand that for any idea to foster, the environment needs to be conducive. So this all environment was there. Okay. Apart from that, if you can find comparative analysis of PPP, Kelkar committee recommendation, and the concept of PPP is something that you all will have in your notes. Okay, already. So have a look at that. Similar is the case of regulatory authorities. So with this, we'll end, today's piece. Okay, and we'll continue with administrative law, accountability and control, administrative law. Then we will venture into public policy, etc., etc. Right, and slowly exit the paper one and move to paper two. Though please understand, it's the lens, like a convex concave lens. So while talking about paper one, I have told you so many things about paper two. Just like today with regards to organizations, we saw a lot much about the public sector undertakings as well, which the learnings that can be used there. So similarly, we'll be reversing the lens when we'll be taking paper two. Okay, so remember these interlinkages, they will help you there as well. All right. So just before we part our ways for the day, any queries that you might have, just flip through the pages and let me know. Otherwise, we'll call it a class.
So in regulatory authority, government associated authority, how they are appointed by government.
क्या पूछ रहे हो, दोबारा पूछो.
In regulatory authority, the independent agencies.
Two things: regulatory authority and independent regulatory authority. Now understand, there are so many regulatory authorities which are functioning like the departments of certain ministry to regulate a particular sector. For example, CBSE, Central Board of Secondary Education. It is under Ministry of Education, right? Practically for working like a department, but also as a regulatory agency. Then come RBI. This is an independent regulatory authority, because this agency has been created empowered by a legislature and act. For CBSE, you do not need legislature. So there is a difference. The DNA remains the same, but the extent to which you can work on that DNA differs.
Because these are aligned with the government.
These are aligned with more aligned with them. So they are aligned with the government, they are at a fairly arm's length. That is why otherwise, your name is Vivek, my name is Abhishek. Why do we have names? Why can't we call you male 1, male, I male 2? There is a reason that a word independent has been put. So it signifies an orientation. Okay. Similarly, you will have TRAI, IRD, etc., which are independent of the respective ministry. Some of them will be independent, some of them will be part of certain ministries. Okay, understood? Okay, thank you everyone. Do remember to do your homework.